kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Can we kindly stand and observe 1 minute silence in memory of our colleague Rudolph Cappy Greenwich, who recently passed away? You may be seated. This House is in session. Minutes for the meeting held on Tuesday, July 30th, 2024 to be deferred. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be deferred.
Questions that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned minutes are hereby deferred.
Announcements by Your Honour. Messages from Her Excellency, the President. Petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first reading of bills, statements by ministers.
Honourable Member St. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for many years since the demise of King Sugar, the tourism industry has been the mainstay of the Barbados economy. This industry can trace its roots to the 18th century. Rachel Pringle Paul Green began operating the Royal Navy Hotel in the late 1770s in Bridgetown. After the railway line was constructed in 1883, Atlantis Inn and Crane Beach Hotel were built and began operating. The modern tourism industry can be traced to the visionary leadership of the Barbados Labour Party and its founder, the now Right Excellent Sir Grantley Herbert Adams, and the Hotel Aids Act of 1956. The industry has employed and continues to employ many people across a broad range of skills. It has earned and continues to earn a significant portion of this country's foreign exchange. It has facilitated economic development, and it has allowed us to share our heritage and way of life with the many persons from across the world who we invite to visit our shores. Because of what I've just said, it is what we refer to as an export industry. Tourism is a people-centered industry with limited scope for mechanization and automation. It is essentially people creating experiences for other people, whether those experiences are in the forms of sporting events, are for medical reasons, business meetings, exploring nature, visiting friends and relatives, or for rest and relaxation. As a people industry, it is necessary that those who create the experiences are valued, and that their ideas, their input, their work, their creativity, their labor is valued. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to make the following point. Barbados emerged from 200 years of the most heinous form of enslavement in human history, inflicted by the English on Africans and people of African descent. Our post-emancipation experience during the 100 years after the passage of the Emancipation Act was not a good one. This led to the People's Uprisings of 1937. I grew up hearing discussions about the industry and references to service versus servitude. It is important that we be clear today that our major industry is not tainted by the vestiges of a not-so-positive past. Over the years, there have been engagements that sought to bring employers and workers together to ensure sustainable growth and mutual satisfaction. Many of the engagements have been with organized workers and established businesses and employers, and much of that engagement has been successful. In more recent times, there has been a palpable air of dissatisfaction in the relationship between some employers and workers in this segment of the industry. We became aware that a significant number of accommodation establishments had left the collective agreement between the BHTA and the BWU, the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, and the Barbados Workers Union. Many of these indicated that they would engage directly with the trade union on terms and conditions of employment, but had not done as they had promised. In addition, some of those establishments no longer honored some aspects of the collective agreement to which they were formally party. Government, recognizing this state of affairs and acutely aware of the importance of a well-functioning industry to our economic fortunes, convened a series of symposia between the months of September and December 2023 with employers and workers in the industry. The parties were the representative organizations of the workers in the industry, and the parties were also the representative organization for the employers. So the BHTA, the Barbados Employers Confederation, and the Barbados Workers Union. The objective of the meetings was to address and resolve some specific matters that affected workers and their performance at work, and to agree general minimum terms and conditions of work for the sector. After a series of meetings, the last taking place on December 28th of 2023, the parties were not able to reach agreement on the language, even though we believe they were very close on the principles underlying terms and conditions. The Barbados Workers Union, the union that has represented workers in the hotel sector for many decades and still does, requested that an approach be adopted, said approach to mirror the approach used for employers and businesses in the construction and road building sector when they are benefiting from public contracts with government. Mr. Speaker, This government operates on the principle that policy is one of the options at its disposal as it seeks to manage the affairs of the state and do right by the people. The setting for the first time in our history of a national minimum wage was one policy option to do right by the people of this country, and we employed that policy option. The approach I just referred to is where government took the position that those employers benefiting from contracts for construction and road building paid for by the public purse, that is to say, the taxpayers of this country, must be held to standards with respect to rates of pay and conditions of work offered to their workers. The Labor Clauses, Public Contracts Act, Cap 349 of the laws of Barbados was the legislation under which minimum rates of pay and conditions of work were established. The Labor Clauses, Public Contracts Act, Cap 349, was passed in 1952 under the leadership of Grantley Adams and last amended in 1976 under then Prime Minister JMGM Tom Adams. The provisions of the Act closely mirror the articles of the International Labour Standard, Convention 94, Labor Clauses, Public Contracts Convention 1949, which was ratified by Barbados on May 8, 1967. The purpose of Cap 349 and Convention 94. The Act, Cap 349, serves to address certain terms and conditions of work for persons engaged in employment where that employment is directly related to construction, alteration, repair, or demolition of public works, the manufacture, assembly, handling, or shipment of materials, supplies, or equipment, and the performance or supply of services under a contract with any ministry, department, or agency of government, including secondary schools. Some of the provisions of the Act are the requirement for a contractor to ensure the payment of wages and setting of hours that are commensurate with the standard in a particular trade or industry, the provision for the Chief Labor Officer, in the absence of existing standards, to consult with representatives of workers and employers to establish fair wages and conditions of employment, a mechanism for dispute resolution in the case of a dispute concerning wages and working conditions, and the binding of subcontractors to conform to all conditions contained in the main contract and to which the main contractor is held, and the responsibility of the main contractor to ensure that subcontractors abide by said conditions. The ILO states that the objectives of Convention 94 are twofold. The first objective is to eliminate labor costs being used as an element of competition among bidders for public contracts by requiring that all bidders respect, at the minimum, country-specific established standards. The second objective is to ensure that public contracts do not exert a downward pressure on wages and working conditions. That is, workers employed under public contracts are entitled to receive wages and enjoy working conditions that are no less favorable than those established for the same work in the area where the work is being done. The principles underpinning ILO Convention 94 remain of relevance today. As a matter of fact, the ILO Committee of Experts on the Application of Conventions and Recommendations in 2007 was moved to say, in light of globalization and intense competition, and I quote, "The objectives of the convention are even more valid today than they were 60 years ago. The government was not able to use Cap 349 with respect to employers in the accommodation sector. Recommendation 84 is the companion standard to Convention 94 and speaks of subsidies and utilities. Cap 349 did not extend to those areas covered by Recommendation 84. You should note that much of what was considered to be subsidies in the 1950s are now referred to as concessions. Please also note that, and this is important, Recommendation 84 states that labor clauses should prescribe provisions contained in laws or regulations, collective agreements, arbitration awards, or other recognized arrangements. Government came to this Parliament in February of 2024, and after debate, the Labor Clauses Concessions Act was passed and is now law in Barbados. That law, as I said then, is framework legislation for businesses and employers receiving concessions from government. At the same time, I was clear to point out that we would be addressing the tourist or visitor accommodation sector for the reasons that I have already outlined. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the law and process we use for construction and road building, the Chief Labor Officer consulted with the representatives of employers and workers on the matter of minimum rates of pay and conditions of work. Meetings were held on March 5th, March 26th, and April 3rd. This consultation was not as difficult as it otherwise could have been because there is a collective agreement in existence that serves as the basis of terms and conditions for much of the sector. Today, I have the honor to share with this honorable chamber the minimum rates of pay and the conditions of work in the tourist or visitor accommodation sector that will be established and published in the official gazette. They are in the appendix to my statement, and for the avoidance of doubt, the appendix forms part of the statement. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to share some of those rates of pay and conditions of work that are being established. And these are based on the existing collective agreement. I share them recognizing that negotiations are ongoing between the BHTA and the BWU for a new collective agreement, and that because of that, revisions to the established rates of pay and conditions of work may need to be made in the not-too-distant future, depending on the outcome of those negotiations. Please also note that I will not speak to matters already addressed by existing laws or regulations. Before I list some of the conditions and rates, which are based on the existing collective agreement, I'm informing this honorable chamber that beside what is mentioned in the appendix in minimum conditions of work, there is the understanding that where there is a system of service charge in place, there must be a joint service charge points committee. That committee's role is to monitor and manage the record keeping and distribution of service charge, including points allocation. In our symposia, we were reminded by former BWU General Secretary Sir Roy Trotman that the implementation of service charge in the industry in Barbados was the result of a request from employers. It was recognized that to bring the wages of workers in the industry to a decent level may have been too much for the industry to bear at that time. The long-standing employers who were present had the same recollection. Service charge brings wages of workers to an acceptable level. This is why it was never intended that managers receive service charge, and this was agreed by both sides. I can also inform that during the symposia, government restated its commitment to assist the industry with training and ensuring that our workers are world-class and meet world-class standards. This chamber may recall that this is a commitment that was made during those terrible days of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our people must be capable of performing at the highest standard in all roles of our most important industry. Government also committed to assisting the industry with research on job titles and job descriptions to facilitate any necessary revisions. Some of the conditions of work based on the existing collective agreement are: work schedules must be written. Additionally, other than in exceptional circumstances, written schedules must be posted and communicated to workers no later than 48 hours before the beginning of the work week. A night differential of $1.50 shall be paid to an employee for every hour of his or her rostered or requested shift that falls between 11 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock a.m. An employee who works on his or her day off or rest day, and I'm not referring to public holiday, shall be paid at double his or her normal rate of pay. Where split shifts are already in operation, there shall not be more than 3 in a 5-day work cycle. There are to be no new split shift arrangements unless agreed between workers and employers. Safety footwear appropriate to the task shall be provided by the employer to employees who are engaged as maintenance staff, stewards, kitchen staff, housepersons, gardeners, and porters. Where an employer requires that a distinctive uniform is to be worn by an employee, and in the industry we refer to distinctive as something other than a black bottom and a white top, at least 3 changes of uniform shall be provided to the employee on an annual basis by the employer at no cost to the employee. Where an employee is required to work beyond 12 o'clock midnight, the employer shall provide for the employee transportation to his or her home. Where on a workday, an employee is required to report for duty before or up to 6 o'clock a.m., the employer shall provide transportation to work for that day at no cost to the employee. Where an employee is not expected to work beyond 12 o'clock midnight, but expects to take the 12 o'clock midnight or the last scheduled public transport vehicle to his or her home, the employees should advise the employer of his or her transportation issues so that adequate provision can be made for them to be permitted to take that last public transportation. An employee who is granted permission in this instance shall not suffer any loss of wages. Under rates of pay, the minimum weekly rates, not including service charge, for some categories, based on the existing collective agreement, are as follows. Room attendants in a luxury establishment, $412.49. And these are weekly rates, as I said, minimum weekly rates. General worker in an A-class establishment, $340. A bell person in a B-class establishment, $340. Receptionist in an A-class establishment, $399.53. A waiter in a luxury establishment, $447.33. A storeroom attendant in an A-class establishment, $369.19. A general cook in a B-class establishment, $340. These are all based on the existing collective agreement. They could be subject to further adjustments based on the outcome of current negotiations between the BHTA and the BWU. Mr. Speaker, the Barbados Labour Party government, this Barbados Labour Party government, continues to demonstrate our commitment to the workers of Barbados. The establishment of minimum rates of pay and conditions of work in the tourist or visitor accommodation sector is an important addition to our program of recognizing the value of workers and their labor. We reaffirm our agreement with a fundamental principle of the ILO's 1944 Declaration of Philadelphia, which states that labor is not a commodity. I will remind this honorable chamber of some of what this government has done since taking responsibility for the management of this country's affairs. We set about discharging our moral responsibility in 2020 when Parliament debated and passed the Employment Prevention of Discrimination Act. This legislation was enacted to ensure that the diversity of workers in Barbados was respected and that they were protected against discrimination on the grounds of race, origin, political opinion, trade union affiliation, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, social status, marital status, domestic partnership status, pregnancy, maternity, family responsibility, medical condition, disability, age, or physical feature, subject to situations that involve genuine occupational qualification, unjustifiable hardship, measures intended to achieve equality, care of minors, religious bodies, and educational institutions administered in accordance with particular religious beliefs. In 2021, the Cabinet established for the first time in the country's history a national minimum wage of $8.50 per hour, as well as a sectoral minimum wage for security officers at $9.25 per hour. This was influenced by the advocacy and work of the Barbados Workers Union, as well as the shop stewards of G4S. Establishing the national minimum wage was done recognizing that even in the middle of a pandemic, workers and their families were being severely impacted by rising prices and the imported inflation that is its principal driver. The rate used by many employers as the floor prior to the establishment of the national minimum wage was the rate set by virtue of the Shops Act for the category of workers known as shop assistants, and this rate was $6.25 per hour. We did not stop there. Government, recognizing that while the Safety and Health at Work Act provided for establishing regulations to address in greater detail and give greater clarity in certain matters identified in the Act, there were no regulations. In 2022, we gazetted 8 regulations. These regulations cover noise, workstations, personal protective equipment, general duties, drinking water, sanitary conveniences, and washing facilities. A regulation was also gazetted to address the plight of one of the groups of workers we considered as a forgotten group, workers at fuel stations. This particular regulation, medical supervision is its title, mandates that workers at fuel stations are entitled to certain medical tests on an annual basis at no cost to themselves. These, Mr. Speaker, represent some of what government has done to recognize the value of workers and protect them as they seek to be engaged, productive citizens who are able to live fulfilling lives for their own benefit and for the benefit of their dependents. I have not spoken of restoring the reverse tax credit. I have not spoken of introducing the compensatory income credit. I have not spoken of government's work in reducing income tax rates. I have not spoken in any detail about the appointment of 138 clerical officers to the position of Customs Officer 4. And I didn't go into any detail about over 1,000 public officers being appointed. And Mr. Speaker, I will not go into any detail at this time about the 3 pay increases that the public officers have received in the last 6 years. 3 pay increases in the last 6 years. Mr. Speaker, this government will continue to ensure that workers in Barbados are protected, valued, and encouraged to become fully productive participants in national development. We will continue to be people-centered in our governance, people-centered in our policy making, and people-centered in our legislation. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
Congratulatory and obituary speeches. Personal explanations. Motions for leave of absence. Oral replies to questions. Notice of motions for adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. Orders of the day.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. Government business is the order of the day.
Order number 6, sir. Order number 6, the name of the Honourable Minister of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution that Parliament of Barbados take note of the 2023-2028 National Policy on Aging.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Sir, it is my distinct privilege this morning to raise and to lead on this resolution as it relates to the National Policy on Aging. As you know, sir, in the ministry we've done significant work over the last few years to bring ourselves to a position where we are able to come and lay this policy before the Parliament. But also, sir, to be able to do similar work in policy for children on gender, on disabilities as well, sir, and just the overarching policy framework that must now drive the ministry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I feel that, as we are all aware, and you know, when we talk policy, many people sometimes think, sir, that we are just talking, and that at the end of a policy, there is nothing. In fact, sir, having been a public servant most of my life, I am well aware that a lot of policies that would have been created within the public service have become nothing but dust on a shelf. I must tell you up front, sir, that that is not our intention here, and in fact, as I go through the presentation this morning, sir, you will see that we have put in place a number of systems to ensure that this does not become dust on a shelf. I was once told, sir, that planning without action is a daydream, but that action without planning is a nightmare. And that there is therefore a sense in which all of us, sir, must engage in proper planning to ensure that we do what is necessary, sir, to drive this country forward. I, sir, am now at the age, you know, they say that old men dream dreams and young men have visions. I am now crossing between both worlds, where 1 minute I'm daydreaming and the next minute I might have visions. So I appreciate, sir, that the reality for many Barbadians who, sir, the average age in Barbados now is mid-40s. The average Barbadian is somewhere between 45 and 47. All now at the point where they will soon start having daydreams like old men do. But Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important that we plan out as we go forward, sir. I'm at the point in my life, sir, where I am driven by certain questions. And I have, sir, during the course of this presentation, I will take you through our situation analysis. I will take you through the actual policy, and I will take you through our implementation plan, sir. But I am at the point in my life, sir, where I now ask myself certain questions. My daily question now is, what kind of man do I want to be? And what kind of world do I wish to live in? And the question that now, as an older person, I guess, what is the legacy that I wish to leave behind, sir? And to offer myself, sir, in the best way that I can, sir, hoping that the best is good enough. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have no doubt that this work and the other associated policy work that we are doing will serve to transform Barbados, sir. I have no doubt. And let me say, sir, at the outset that you might, during the course of this conversation, hear me use different terminology. The nomenclature may change. I may say seniors. I know some people prefer seniors. I may say elderly. I may say older persons. But the sense is that I'm talking about the same group, basically those 65 and older, generally. And that even though I may change the nomenclature, you must appreciate, sir, that this government has always and will always treat to older persons with a sense of respect and a great degree of dignity. Evidence in all the things that we would have done since we came into office, sir, to ensure that life is better for older persons. Sir, at the outset as well, let me thank a number of persons before I actually get into this policy, sir. I want to begin, sir, and permit me to say a few names, sir. Thank you. I want to begin, of course, by thanking the former minister, Cynthia Ford, who would have started this work, sir, before I became minister. In fact, the situation analysis was done before I became the minister, led by Cynthia Ford. I want to thank her, sir, because she has not only served this ministry, but she has served this country.
You mean the Honourable?
The Honourable Member for St. Thomas, sir. The Honourable Member for St. Thomas who served this ministry and this country with great distinction, sir. I want to thank her as I begin this presentation. I also want to thank Jacqueline Wiltshire, who works alongside her. I want to thank Jacqueline Wiltshire, who works alongside her, who also does great support work in the ministry. So as we began this work, sir, we did a lot of work with PAHO. I must thank PAHO, sir, the Pan American Health Organization, for what they did with the ministry to allow us to have what I think is perhaps the most comprehensive situational analysis in relation to the elderly ever done in this country, sir. I call all this work the floor, basically. Like where we are now, the floor. And hopefully, sir, we can go no lower because the situation facing elderly people in Barbados, sir, as you will see during this presentation, needs urgent attention. Of course, sir, the policy that is before the House, sir, was commissioned, and we hired, sir, Professor Dwayne Devonish and Lawrence Nurse, Dr. Nurse, from the University of the West Indies to help guide the situation analysis as well as the policy framework that we have. I want to begin by thanking them as well, sir. And at present, sir, we are working on the legislation. We have a version of the drafting instructions, and I want to thank all who worked on those drafting instructions, as well as the Law Reform Commission and Sir David Simmons, who has given us a lot of assistance, sir, in getting the most appropriate drafting instructions as we go forward, sir. And I believe, sir, that we will have this legislation before the House in very short order. And I'm certain, sir, that we will have the legislation for persons with disabilities before the House by the end of this year. So I also want to thank our many partners in this fight, sir. I want to thank the Barbados Association of Retired Persons. Sir, BARP has done such good work for older persons in this country. It would be almost a sin to come to Parliament, sir, and to speak on a policy and not speak of the work that BARP has done, sir, over the last few years. I like to say, sir, that when I was indeed capable of having visions as a young man, when I did my first master's, I wrote my dissertation on the elderly, and in fact, it was a study of BARP. At that time, BARP was relatively new, and Kathleen Drayton, I think, was then the person who led it. But sir, I also want to thank Marlon Rice-Bowen, sir, for her leadership. I think her leadership in relation to issues on the elderly, her advocacy, the fact that she pushes the government, she has been a very trying partner, sir, pushing on behalf of the elderly, but never disagreeable. Even though we don't always agree, sir. I really want to thank Marlon Rice-Bowen for her leadership. I think it has been outstanding, and that the persons who are old in this country are better off because of her leadership, sir. I also want to thank the Seroptimists. You know, they're like almost quiet leaders in this business, sir, and the housing that they provide for older persons, the Dementia Organization, the Alzheimer's Association. So there are a number of them, sir. I also would want to thank my friends at CBL Chambers. They're not here, but I want to thank them, sir, because, you know, there was a time when we engaged publicly, sir, on what should be the way forward, sir. But I want to thank them because it is not normal that you see young men having an interest.
I don't remember they're upstairs.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. I am sure you would allow them to come downstairs in this place, sir. But I want to thank them, sir, because it is not always that you see young men engage in this kind of work. And the fact is, sir, that they have done a number of things, sir, quietly as well to help older persons in Barbados, sir. And lastly, sir, I want to thank the staff in the ministry. I'm sure that I might have missed someone, but I have time. I want to thank the staff in the ministry, sir. I know that they know that I am not always easy, but I suspect that they can see the results of our efforts. I want to thank my permanent secretary, Mr. Wiltshire, and all the staff. I want to thank Colleen Walcott at the National Assistance Board, sir. I believe that we have a good relationship and we've gone on to do wonderful things. And lastly, again, sir, really my ministerial colleagues, because I believe I've never seen this level of engagement on social issues, sir. The attention that is paid here in Cabinet, other places to these social issues, sir. I want to thank them for the way they've weighed in. And honestly, sir, I feel I also want to thank the Prime Minister. I want to thank the Prime Minister, sir, for giving me the latitude to do things and for trusting me with this ministry, but also for giving me the freedom to lead it the way that I believe it ought to be led, sir. And for supporting me, sir, putting her dollars where her mouth is, sir, and giving us this ministry and the National Assistance Board the most money to service the older population that has ever been given to any administration to serve older people in Barbados. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me begin, sir, by giving some background as to why we are here. I feel as if, sir, this is a conversation that I have had with this country several times. But it is a conversation that I feel I must continue to have. Because, sir, there is a sense in me, sir, that perhaps, you know, even though we can see it coming, we are still going to be caught somewhat off guard. And I keep making this point, sir, because I feel as if Barbadians may believe that we are talking for talking's sake. But when I say, sir, that there is an Asian revolution, there was a book I read called The Asian Time Bomb, sir, where we are not preparing our country properly for what is about to happen, sir. And I feel that I must continue to have this conversation. I want to thank my partners, too, because they're also having this same conversation, sir. So the World Health Organization tells us that about 1 in 6 persons will be aged 60 or older by 2030. 1 in 6 persons will be aged 60 or older by 2030. This is what they have predicted, sir. Our last census told us, sir, that 1 in 5 Barbadians already over 65, and 1 in 4 already over 60. The World Health Organization told us that 1 in 6 by 2030. We are already 1 in 4 in 2024, sir. Barbados is aging at a rate that is advanced, more advanced, sir, than most countries. At the rate that on which we are aging, sir, Barbados will become a super age society where over 21% is over 65 years old within the next decade, certainly. This, sir, must be not a cause for concern, surely, but it must be a call to action if we are to address what is going to befall this country, sir. When I spoke last time in the population report, sir, I suggested that the rate of increase, the rate at which this country is aging, should cause us all some degree of concern. We are aging, sir, at a rate that should cause us all concern because it has policy implications. If the average Barbadian is now mid-40s, you could only imagine what the age of the average Barbadian will be in the next 20 years. And if it is that Barbadians are living longer and having fewer and fewer children, and I'm not getting into the debate about whether they should or whether they should not, but I do know that on the current trajectory, sir, we're going to have a very serious policy conversation about how it is we're going to be able to finance this country, to support those, sir, who are working, who are not working, sir, in relation to our working population, the dependency ratio, those who are working in relation to those who are not working because they're too young, or because they're sick, or because they're too old. And if you have a shrinking working population meant to carry all of that, then, sir, this is a conversation that the country is going to have. Regrettably, sir, the pension conversation had taken a political slant. But I must say, sir, regardless of what government, which government, who government occupies this place, this is a conversation that Barbados is going to have to engage in, sir, very, very soon. In fact, this is a conversation for now. If I'm being more honest, sir, this was a conversation for 10 years ago. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the need for us to have this policy conversation is obvious. I've already outlined the fact, sir, that our society is aging and aging fast. Sir, I've also outlined that the situation is dire because a number of our older persons are in need of care. What we've done in Barbados, and we did it very well, sir, we extended life. People live longer. But what we did not do is reduce morbidity. So you've decreased mortality, but you've increased morbidity. People are living longer, they're sicker. Many Barbadians, sir, dealing with issues that are treatable. Many of us presenting at the hospital or the doctor's too late, sir. Barbados is an older society, but unlike some other societies, as we would have seen when we travel the world, so I encourage my staff to go and see what other people are doing. They do it all the time. Go and see what other people are doing. We would have seen, sir, in countries like Japan, where the population is older, they're not as sickly as Barbadians are, sir. That is because, sir, they exercise, sir, and the thing that drove them more so than anything else would be companionship, family, a sense of belonging. What troubles me most, beyond the fact that our society is aging, is the fact that that sense of family, belonging, and companionship that actually prolongs life and the quality of life is decreasing in Barbados. And therefore, sir, we're going to have a double whammy, sir. And these are conversations. When we say that we want to talk about family, sir, when I speak later about the need for us to to create a family services organization or for us to engage in parental programs, it's not because we just want to do things. Well, I ain't come here to just try a thing. Sir, it is because these things are necessary. These are necessary. Sir, we've seen the increase in non-communicable diseases, sir, and other disabilities, sir, affecting the older population. We've also seen an increase in domestic and regional reports of elder abuse, sir. And I look forward to bringing that legislation here very soon, sir, that will address it, sir, particularly as it relates to financial exploitation, elderly bank fraud, elderly land, property, and asset theft. Sir, because, you know, it is a pity, but it is what it is, that the vast majority of cases that we are dealing with in relation to elder abuse is family. It is often a son, a daughter, a brother or sister who is attempting to take advantage of the elderly, sir. And, sir, that is why I say this conversation is going to require a little bit more, sir, than just numbers. This is a conversation for all of Barbados, sir. And, sir, obviously we have from time to time to review our policies, our national policy, the policies that would have guided us before, sir. The reality is that for most of us in the social sector, whether it is in my ministry or other components of the social sector, the reality is that our legislation is extremely old. In fact, Barbados does not have specific elderly legislation. But the legislation where it exists, sir, is extremely old and extremely limiting, sir. And we had necessarily, sir, to have a conversation on aging. Sir, on October 20, and this is why I want to thank the Honourable Member for St. Thomas. On October 30th, 2020, sir, the ministry began the conversation with PAHO. That would have been less than 2 years, or just over 2 years of coming to office. I had that conversation with PAHO, sir, to begin the work on a situation analysis. A conversation on aging and elder affairs forming the narrative was what they call it, sir. To begin that conversation around how is it that we are going to address these many issues facing the elderly, sir. And when I go through the situation analysis, sir, as I will in some detail, it is not to tell Barbadians a horror story, but it is to present the reality of the times and to present the need for the policy that we are bringing and the legislation that we are bringing. So I know full well that we cannot do this on our own. And that is why, sir, I am very thankful to the partners in the ministry, sir. In fact, sir, much of the work that has to be done in the ministry in relation to advancing the interests of the elderly requires other ministries. It requires the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central now acting as Minister of Finance to be able to finance some of these things. It requires the Minister of Labour, sir, to help us. Maybe we have to look at some policies, sir, because there are older people who are capable and competent and still want to work. It requires certainly the Ministry of Health, because a lot of the issues facing the elderly are issues pertaining to health. The Ministry of Housing, sir, and the built environment, as you will hear us discuss, sir, crime, because they've expressed us very clearly. They've expressed to us very clearly, sir, that crime is an issue for them, sir. And Mr. Speaker, sir, this is the case everywhere. This is the case everywhere, so it requires that all of us do this. When cases come to the ministry, most of the time, a case for poverty eradication, sir, the person is already poor. If you're going to prevent it, sir, it requires action outside of the ministry. We can offer some action to take you out of it, and hopefully keep you out of it. But if you come to me, if you come to the ministry, you're already there. We therefore, sir, have to have a conversation around education, around planning, around literacy training. I mean, this is going to be a very, very big conversation, sir. And the world, sir, is celebrating the decade of healthy aging between 2020 and 2030. This is now. And these things are fitting to be done during the course of this decade, sir. I know it is not normal to speak on a ministerial statement, sir, but the things that we are putting in place to make sure people can live will also have benefits for people as they get older, sir. If you can ensure people can live while they are working, the work that the Honourable Member for St. Peter just brought, sir, is transformative. I listened, sir, but I was thinking in relation to this bill, this resolution, when we are able to do these things to guarantee that people can live, sir, if you are an unhealthy child, sir, If you're a child or a person, sir, an adult, does not exercise, cannot afford to eat well, sir, there's a higher probability that you will be a sickly adult, a sickly older person. So we have to make sure that older people are able to live, sir, but it doesn't begin at the end, sir. So, sir, we hired the Professor Devonish as a consultant, sir, because we all know very well that you can't advise yourself. And so while we weighed in, we got the professional help from the University of the West Indies. So I want to thank the University of the West Indies. They've been a very good partner to this ministry, sir, in relation to the work that we are required to do. And that is what I think universities are supposed to do. Help us create new knowledge. In fact, that's how you gauge universities all over the world, by your capacity to generate new knowledge. And sir, I want to thank the University of the West Indies for coming forward, sir. But Mr. Speaker, sir, our cabinet meeting held in December 2022, sir, when we had brought the policy to cabinet, we then determined, sir, that we would want to go back out to further consultation. If there is nothing that can be legitimately, well, there really is nothing that can legitimately be thrown at this government, sir, but if there is one thing that I know for sure that cannot be thrown at this government, sir, is that we refuse to consult. We went back out to further consultation, even after Professor Devonish and his team had done a set of consultations, sir. And the cabinet decided then, sir, that we should have further conversations, sir, with the health sector, faith-based organizations, insurance agencies, private sector, community-based organizations, further conversations with bar operators in the service, leaders in the civil society spaces, sir, and the Barbados Police Force. We went back out. We had further conversations, sir, to help shape this policy, sir. And that is why we are presenting today a policy, sir, that we believe, sir, captures the main issues in Barbados, sir. But we do not only describe them. If you go through the policy, sir, as I'm sure you have, you will see that we have listed the situation, which I call the floor. We have put in place mechanisms and policies, sir, to address them, which I call the future. And we have then put in place strict timelines that we are trying desperately to meet, sir, which I call our focus. So we are facing them, sir, and fixing them. But I assure you, sir, that this is not going to be any single boast. This is not going to be something that we're going to achieve overnight, sir. This is going to be difficult work, sir. The width, the mere width of the work and the depth of the work that is required, sir, to get us to where we ought to be does not give us the luxury of taking our foot off the gas. We have to work today, tomorrow, Mr. Chairman, sir, and every other day, Mr. Speaker, sir, to be able to get where we ought to be going, sir. So let me share with you, sir, that because of our demographic transition and the fact that our aging is so advanced, sir, we have one of the fastest aging populations in the world. In the world, sir. That is going to be a cause for concern, sir. The other thing, sir, that we found during the conversation, sir, was that elderly people were very concerned about their care during disasters. And if you're living in a climate crisis, sir, you would know that you have to be concerned about disasters. In fact, sir, our disasters, we anticipate, sir, having had the hottest day for the year, almost every day this year, hotter than the last one. Sir, we saw a hurricane forming in June, hitting Barbados in July. So these are unprecedented things. The older person, sir, considering the fact that I said that most of them now have to reside alone, one way or the other, they're concerned about that, sir. And let me address this one way or the other, this reside alone thing, sir, because, you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a belief that if you live in a house with somebody, that you got support. That if you live as an older person in a household with a grandchild or a granddaughter, that you have support. That is a myth. The staff of the National Assistance Board would tell you quite clearly, if they were to speak to it, sir, so permit me to say, George Griffith, I know, who is doing a lot of work with the companion program, if he spoke to it, or the director, Ms. Colleen Walker, spoke to it, they would tell you that there are many cases where people live in households with older people, sir, and do nothing for them. And that the only care they receive is the care that they receive from the state. And that the day when the National Assistance Board workers do not show up, that the older persons in a house with other people get no support. Or you may choose, sir, or other people, not you, sir, but others may choose to think that I am a man not telling truth when I say that sometimes we go and dress a wound, sir, and it has no care, nobody looks at it again until we go back. And God forbid that there is a vacation day, a holiday, sir, and the worker asks for an additional day. That's an additional day. Or if the person is in, I don't want to say Pampers, but if the person is in incontinent, and the person soils themselves, sir, that in a house with other people, that person is not cleaned or cared for until the National Assistance Board workers go back. That is the reality of Barbados, sir. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but it certainly is a lot of what we are now seeing, sir. So there is a conversation to be had around care. There's a conversation to be had now around family, sir. And there's a conversation to be had around relationships. And sir, you have to juxtapose this against what I said, which is that the reason people are able to live longer and the reason that people are able to live well is because of the relationship. And if that relationship is deteriorating, then we really have a problem in Barbados, sir. But they're very concerned about disasters. And there's also, sir, we've seen it now with fires, with flooding, even with high wind, sir. There are a number of issues facing the older population, sir. The last census told us that 1 in every 5 Barbadians is now over 65. I keep making this point. 1 in every 4 over 60. Barbados is old, sir. Barbados has a problem. And if we do not act now, sir, if we try to kick the can down the road, then we will reap what it is that we sow. I am saying to Barbados, sir, that the problem facing Barbados is real. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. That this is the reality facing Barbados, sir. If we do not do something about this, sir, very soon, it is going to come back to haunt Barbados. So of all the things that I deal with in the ministry, sir, aging, disabilities, HIV, children's issues, of all the issues that I deal with, sir, the one that I worry most about now is the aging dynamic. Because I know that it will come back to haunt all of us, sir. And that the present reality for those who are already there is not pleasant, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we then went on to look at this situational analysis, sir. And the terms of reference were very clear. I will not go through them, sir. But the terms of reference are very clear. When we decided to set out on getting this situation analysis, in essence, what we wanted to do was to capture the idea of what it is that is occurring in Barbados and to develop a system for monitoring and evaluating it, sir, and to put in place a new framework to be able to address it, sir. Sir, the key characteristics that we felt, sir, in relation to the global standards that we would want to have, sir, were in relation to availability. These are our services. Accessibility, adaptability, appropriateness, safety, informed consent, and confidentiality, sir, because many older persons are concerned about that. Effective communication and participation, sir, by all of our stakeholders, sir, and by all the persons with whom older persons come into contact with, sir. We want to identify the strengths and weaknesses of the current system, sir. We want to look at the threats, sir, about to face the older person, sir, and then to complete the final draft evaluation, situation analysis, sir. And we did that. And I would advise Barbados, sir, to read the draft situation analysis. Sir, I think it's on our webpage. If it is not, PS will ensure that it is by the end of the day, so that all Barbados can read the draft situation analysis and to see that what I'm saying here I am not making up. I did not write it, sir. And we did this in 2020. For those who would want to make this a political conversation, the situation analysis was done in 2020. So it would have been a description of the last 10 years, probably from 2010 and onward and afterward. But I do not wish, sir, at any point at all in this conversation to talk politics, because I do believe that this is not a political conversation. But I also know very well, sir, that if we had done a little bit more in the last 10 years prior, we would have been able to avoid some of what is before us now. sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the policy and the situation analysis had a few basic pillars. So these pillars are community care and supporting social services, health services, and medical care. And you're going to hear me repeating these, sir, throughout this presentation, sir, because they find themselves in the situational analysis, they find themselves in the policy framework, and they find themselves in the implementation plan. The community care and supporting social services, health services and medical care, financial and economic security, treatment of elder abuse and related threats, physical and built environment, this is in relation to housing and their capacity to be able to get by and so on, preparation for natural disasters, pandemics, and other related emergencies, and legislation for protecting and supporting the elderly, sir. And this data was collected over a 3-month period, sir, to ensure that we were in a position to have this conversation. Sir, as it relates to community care and supporting social services, and this is in the situational analysis, so this is not the policy. This is what we found. This is what is. We found, sir, that there were several strengths and positive features for community care and supporting social services. In other words, there were things in place already, sir, that we could feel proud of as a country. Namely, of course, the work being done by the National Assistance Board, sir. The work being done, sir, by the Human Development and Poverty Alleviation Community Assistance Program, sir. A lot of the work coming out of the ministry. The specialized community care and services for disabled elderly facilitated by the NDU. And I want to thank the NDU, sir, because they've done a great job, sir. The number of persons in Barbados who've had access to a ramp or bathroom support, sir, because of the National Disabilities Unit, sir, I want to commend them for the work that they are doing to help persons with disabilities, but particularly the older persons with disabilities, sir. Sir, I also want to thank the other thing that they found as a strength, sir, was BARP. That the Barbados Association of Retired Persons and the work of the Seroptimists was also instrumental, sir, in our strength, sir. But they found weaknesses too. They found several weaknesses too, sir, in relation to what currently exists, sir. They found an inadequate supply of home and community care services for the elderly, sir. We don't have enough. But I must also say, sir, that this government brought on 432 workers. We brought on 432 workers, sir, to help the elderly, sir. So if we brought on 432 and we still do not have enough, you could only imagine what existed before. So they found an increasing demand, sir, against the limited supply of services because, and this is bound to happen, sir, because the population is getting older. The population is getting older, there are less people caring for the elderly, the role of the state has to change, the burden of care now becomes the state's responsibility. So essentially, sir, it means that we are always going to be playing catch up unless the people in Barbados, sir, the families, sir, have to take on some of this work too. It is going to be impossible for every person who is over 65 in need of care to have a home health worker assigned. And the question that's asked to me is, can I get a home helper? And can I have a home helper all day long? It's impossible. Unless you want me to hire 40,000, 50,000 home helpers, it's just impossible. It's impossible, sir. I know you know it's impossible, but there has to be a role for the family, there has to be a role for the community. Sir, the other weakness that they found was a lack of proper coordination and collaboration. And they also found limited targeted training and development programs, sir, for the elderly. Sir, and there are other things. But these are some of the things that they found. So in relation to the policy, when we get there, sir, you will see that we have addressed these things systematically, one by one, to be able to fix the problems we see highlighted in the situational analysis, sir. In relation to health and health services, sir, we also have a number of key strengths, sir. In fact, sir, the health services, sir, was said to have an excellent cadre of health and medical professionals. No one can doubt the quality of the Barbadian doctors. An excellent cadre of health and health professionals, sir. We also have an established institutional healthcare system, sir, that many older people felt that they could rely on. But the burden on it, sir. They also, sir, a multidisciplinary team for supporting nursing and medical care, sir. Strong internal network among the nursing fraternity, sir. Great relationships with the NGO community, sir, who allows them to access some of these health benefits, sir, because a number of NGOs do work very quietly, sir, to help older people. And development of clinical protocols for addressing the needs of the elderly. But like everything else, and sir, I intend to be very honest during the course of this presentation. Like anything else, sir, in the health services, they found weaknesses. I won't go through all of them, sir, but they found an insufficient supply of human resources to meet the diverse health and medical needs of the elderly, sir. An insufficient supply of human resources. Again, sir, this is going to be the case by virtue alone of the numbers. The numbers alone of older persons will result in pressure being placed on the system. If Barbados is going to be able to avoid this, sir, we have to start early. This has to be a life cycle approach. Try to get more of our older persons as they age, that they age well, sir, and they age healthy, so that we do not put that pressure on the hospital, sir. But as it stands, there's always going to be some pressure because the number of persons coming for care for treatable things, sir. You know, they say, sir, that for persons who have a heart attack or have to have heart surgery, the death toll, sir, is not from the operation. In fact, most of the operations are successful. It is the process of adaptation, changing your behavior. Don't smoke, don't drink, don't stay out late, get some rest, do a little exercise. It's the adaptation that seems to exceed the capacity of people, even when they're trying to extend their own life, sir. And sir, that is why I know that we have to start these things young. That is why the Ministry of Sports is pivotal, and the work that they're doing with school children, sir. That is why it's pivotal that we get community groups back up and running, as the Minister of Community Development is the Honourable Member for St. John is now doing. Because the more that we can get people active, sir, the less likely they are to be sick as they get older. That's just a fact, sir. And therefore, sir, the pressure on the hospital may come down. Sir, we saw limited financial resources and wastage, fragmentation in management structure and the delivery of the aged care. They felt, sir, that the physical quality of the plant, some of them, sir, was deteriorated to a point where it caused them some concern. There were other barriers to health services, sir. They felt it difficult to access the pharmacies, sir. And some inequity in resource allocation, sir. And the one thing that they felt very hurt by is the stigma that if you are over 70, sir, that somehow you could be at the back of the lane because you're going to soon dead. And that is how people treat older people, sir. My mother told me once she went to QEH, and because my mother is one of these people that believe in the hospital. No matter how much I begged, I said, Mommy, let me take you to a doctor. They got my records. They got my records at the clinic, and they got my records at the hospital. She ain't want to go to no doctor at all. Gone to the hospital in agony and asked the security guard for a chair. And the security guard said, wait your turn. So she, like everybody else outside, kneeling over in pain, sir. We went to, just a week or two ago, sir, was driving around, sir. And there was an older man, sir, who he told me he was at the back of the lane. You could see he's in pain in the gas station in St. Philip. And in Curtains. And, sir, this man is bending over in pain. He said to me, I had an operation just yesterday. But two things occurred to me. First of all, that this man was in so much pain, but that he had nobody that could go to the gas station and he was buying food, sir, and buy him food. But when he said it, sir, I don't know if it's a St. Philip thing, but the people all stepped aside and allowed him to go to the front of the line. That is the Barbados that I know. And that is the Barbados that we must get back. I want to thank the people in St. Philip because they all stepped aside and allowed that man to get to the front of the line once they realized that he was hurt. But the older people are telling me that is not their experience at the hospital. And that is not their experience at a lot of the clinics. And it wasn't my mother's experience. And I'm saying to you, sir, that we have to do better. And it's not, this isn't to blame the government. Most of the time, this is a security guard. It's the same thing at welfare. That oftentimes people complain about the guard not allowing them to get past the gate. No matter how many times they tell them the guard shouldn't be getting involved in these things. Sometimes it's a guard. It could be another worker, sir. But of course, these things come back to haunt those of us who sit in this place. And so we have to get it right. But they feel that they're discriminated against very heavily in the medical. I suspect, sir, that it's everywhere. I suspect that they feel so when they come to welfare. In fact, they said so. that they feel they get discriminated against at welfare too. And so this discrimination, Honourable Member for St. Michael East, is everywhere. If you get a certain age, sir, they feel that, your time passed. And we have to be able to work on that, sir. In terms of financial and economic security, sir, several strengths were also identified. The existence of a functioning public service facility providing financial assistance for at-risk elderly, an attractive national welfare assistance program. They found it was attractive, many of them. Although I feel, sir, that the time has come now to start looking at what we offer in welfare, given the cost of living, sir. A lot of it, as the Honourable Member for St. Peter said, inflation imported because of what is happening in the world. So we have to maybe review these numbers. They felt the assistance in kind program at welfare was pretty good. But, sir, they also identified key weaknesses. They felt, sir, there was a lack of adequate financial literacy training. They felt they did not know how to navigate some of these things. Sir, we also found that there was poor retirement planning. I heard the head of BARP, sir, speak about retirement planning. Sir, I want to thank them. Sir, recently BARP launched a business center of sorts, so where elderly persons can come in, get some training, learn to use the internet, because the days of not being able to use the internet, sir, are fast coming to zero. And I want to thank them, sir, for opening their doors to allow regular older people to come and learn how to use the internet, learn how to do business, sir. When we offered to put people's monies on their bank account, sir, people complained. The same people that said we should have done it during COVID. These are things that we're going to have to be able to do, sir. Sir, the other thing that they found, sir, was a growing case of financial exploitation of the elderly. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have already spoken to that, sir, but it is something that we have to be able to address, sir, and I will speak to that when I get to the policy. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are a number of things. The other thing, sir, that we addressed was in relation to treatment of the elderly, sir, and related threats. Again, we found strengths, sir, but we also found weaknesses. And in relation to the physical and built environment, sir, they felt that Barbados had an established transportation system. They felt that the availability of assisted living facilities by the NAB was very good, extremely good actually, is what they said, but that we just don't have enough. We just don't have enough. Sir, every day, because people seem to think, sir, that everything old is the Honourable Member for St. Michael South responsibility. So I hear, sir, when an older person has an issue, they call me quick. But a lot of the issues, sir, in terms of elderly care, sir, is at the Ministry of Health. In terms of the facilities, the nursing facilities around the country, those are under the Ministry of Health. But a lot of them call me, sir, in relation to that, sir. But they feel we need to have more facilities. And in that vein, sir, I want to thank again the Prime Minister, sir, for giving us access this year to $7 million to begin the process of building out new facilities for the elderly, sir. And I must tell you, sir, that as it stands, we've already started doing some drawings, sir. We're going to go to Sterling, the building at Sterling, sir. Our plan, once Cabinet approves, is to modify that building, retrofit that building, to make that building a place where the elderly can have some respite and daycare, sir. And we're also going to use that money, sir, to build some housing on that space, sir, in relation with BARP, as well as with Sir Optimus, sir. And this will be the first set of new buildings for the elderly since this government built the facility at Vauxhall. Sir, it would also be, sir, that it was this government, sir, that renovated the Vauxhall Centre, sir, for a few million, and renovated the one at Lancaster, sir. Doing a lot of work in terms of building out the facilities for elderly persons, sir. So it would be this administration, sir, that is going to be spending $7 million over the next few years, sir, to build out facilities for the elderly. And we have to, because, sir, it is clear to me that on this rate, we are going to need more spaces. It's simply not enough what we currently have, sir. In relation to the preparation for national disasters, sir, they felt, sir, that we had a system, sir, through the DM and other places that gave them some comfort. But as usual, sir, there were concerns, sir, that there were insufficient interventions on disaster preparedness, that many of the conversations were not for them, were not for the elderly, were not for persons with disabilities, that in some cases the facilities themselves were not friendly to them. So these are things we have to look at, sir. Poor housing stock, you've seen it, sir. You drive around Not only in lower socioeconomic communities, sir. You drive around some middle-class communities, and you would have had a time where people had maybe a teacher married to another teacher or a policeman or something, and they built themselves a middle-class life. The kids have moved on, sir. And you look at a number of these houses in some of what you call these older established areas. You can look and see that the houses won't work. The roof leaking, they can't afford to fix the cupboards leaking, the piping leaking. You look around some of these established communities, you will see. So when I say these things, I'm not only talking about what people would perceive to be the poorer persons of our community, sir. There are people who would have lived a good life, but not that they're older. Their pensions just cannot carry them, cannot support the houses, sir. And we have to have a conversation about how do we intervene and help these people, sir, to be able to help themselves, sir. In relation, sir, to the legislation, sir, the major strengths was that they felt, sir, that we had some legislation in the National Security, the National Insurance and Social Security, the Pensions Act, and so on, sir, the National Assistance Act. But obviously, there is no clear legislation in relation to elder abuse, and this is what started the conversation with me and my friends at CBL, sir. But there was no clear legislation. And I suspect, sir, that once I get those draft instructions to Cabinet next week, very soon before this Parliament, sir, we're going to bring legislation to protect the elderly, sir, on a number of these issues. Not only on elder abuse, but all those other issues that I have mentioned, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in summary, sir, the key findings of the situation analysis was really and truly, I could simply say in one word, bleak. That the situation for older persons in Barbados as it stands without intervention is bleak. And therefore, we have to do things, sir, to make sure that we improve the lot for older persons, sir. So when we categorize what were the major issues, the first one, sir, in summary, was that the elderly felt that they needed greater financial and economic security. That's the first one. Greater financial and economic security. This was highlighted by over 80% of the respondents. Greater financial and economic security, sir. The second was in relation to health and wellness needs, sir, where 65 to 70% felt that they wanted better access and so on to health care. And then, sir, about another 50% of the respondents, sir, felt there were other problems, but predominantly as it related to disasters and their own care, sir. And then, of course, sir, there were some institutions that did not fare as well in relation to the judgment of the older population, sir. They felt very kind about BART. They felt very kind about NAB. They felt very kind about the National Disabilities Unit. But, sir, they did not feel as kind about the banking system or BRA or the licensing authority or the welfare department and in relation to their access to employment. That they feel somehow that they're discriminated against in these facilities, sir. So, sir, there's a lot of work to be done, sir, in relation to that. That leads me, sir, to the policy. Sir, the Barbados National Policy on Aging for 2023 to 2028 seeks to address all of those concerns that I just raised, sir. You know, sir, this administration, we had a philosophy of facing it and fixing it. The current Prime Minister always says to me, sir, we have to complete the circle of enfranchisement. We have done a lot, sir, but we have to do more now. You know, it was easier, I feel, for people to see the things that you would have done. When you're going to pave a road, Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast, if you pave a road, people could come and say, yeah, you pave a road, right? And if you don't pave a road, they see that you haven't paved the road, and they could get pleased or they could get upset. When back in the day, sir, when, you give people free access to education, because these are things. But as the world has changed, these things become less visible, less tangible. So even as you make progress, sir, it becomes difficult for people to be able to see it. We have to find a way to communicate it and to measure it. So what is in this national policy, sir, that I felt it was important enough for us to share in this Parliament, sir? It covers the period 2023 to 2028, sir. And it advances a number of key priority areas of intervention and for interaction. And it requires, sir, that we have a whole-of-country approach. Sir, allow me once more to read the core priority areas which came from the situational analysis, sir, for consistency, so people understand that there is a plan to this thing, a method, sir, in this madness. Mr. Speaker, sir, community care and supporting social services. Health services and medical care. Financial, social, and economic security. Treatment of elder abuse and related threats. The physical and the built environment. Preparation for natural disasters, and legislation for protecting and supporting the elderly, sir. I will not go over again the rationale for an aging policy. I believe that I've made that very clear. In relation, sir, to the state that the country is in relation to how the older population is not feeling that they can benefit from all that Barbados has to offer. So I'm not going to get into the need to have it, sir. I'm sure we all agree that there is a need to have it, sir. But, sir, what is our focus? In this policy, sir, we outline overarching policy goals and a vision statement. Our overarching goal, sir, is to enable and promote healthy and active aging as a way of life for all Barbadians, and ensure that the fundamental rights and freedoms of older persons are fully recognized and vigorously defended. Vigorously defended. It is not enough to recognize them, sir, but you must defend them. It's not enough to defend them, sir, but you must defend them vigorously to ensure that older people can benefit, sir, from all that Barbados has to offer. The vision, sir, that we outline, sir, is to be a country in which all older persons are sufficiently engaged, equipped, and empowered to lead healthy, active, secure, and dignified lives in this country, sir. So given this statement, sir, this policy reflects what I think, sir, is the attention that we must pay to these core areas. I will not read them again, sir, but you know them. Community, economic security, financial, treatment of elders, and so on. Sir, as we have outlined, sir, for each of these policy objectives, we have articulated what the overarching objective is. We've then identified individual objectives, and for every objective, sir, we've put in place a strategy. For every strategy, sir, were I to go through, which I won't do this morning, but were I to go through the implementation plan, we've put in place timelines for everything, sir. So I know when I am on target. PS knows when he's on target. I know when the ministry is on target. And I know when we are off target, sir. And I know there are certain things that we are ahead of schedule, and regrettably there are certain things that we are behind but must come back up to par. But we've outlined, sir, overarching objectives, and then we've identified individual objectives, and then strategies and timelines. So we were so meticulous, sir. I want to thank Professor Devonish and Dr. Nurse, sir, because even after that, when we met with them, sir, we put in place checklists. Checklists. I know very well, sir, my pastor used to tell me people do not do what you expect. They do what you inspect. I'm the inspector. So we got a checklist we're going through. People now have to be able to do the things that they set out to do. I will not, sir, this ministry cannot, sir, allow this document to be a document that sits on the shelf and gathers dust. You can't. In fact, sir, I am duty-bound to ensure that before the end of this term that legislation comes to this parliament and hopefully is passed to allow us to protect older persons. That's the end game. The situation analysis got us to the policy will get us to the legislation will empower and protect older persons. So the first was in relation to financial and economic security. Sir, the objectives that we set for this, sir, were one, to enhance general financial literacy of older persons. Sir, the overarching policy, philosophical principle in the ministry is this. I do not believe, sir, that the ministry has to do everything. I believe that a good government whether it is in this ministry or any other ministry, has to appreciate that it has to work through its partners. So that you create the framework, you facilitate business, but that you allow other people to do it. And other people may say, well, I see the government doing it, but if you offer the financial support, the space, you allow other people to do it. Financial literacy, sir, is going to be very, very important as we plan out, sir. To ensure adequate levels of financial and economic assistance, sir, related services for older persons in need. So we have to have a conversation around, are the resources being made available to older persons enough to allow them to live a dignified life? And sir, also in relation to ensuring that the rights of older persons to work, employment, and economic participation are met, sir. You know, in other countries, sir, they speak of a silver economy, where older people, sir, are seen as integral parts of the overall economy. We have to find a way, sir, to allow older people to work, to live, to eat, sir. And also, sir, people, if businesses were smart, most older people have more financial resources than younger people. They now need to start targeting some programs to be able to address the issues pertaining to the elderly, sir. Sir, our strategy will be to provide that literacy training. We want to enhance national assistance, sir. We want to support the rights of older persons to work, sir. The Honourable Member for St. Peter is my very good friend. And not only is he my good friend, I know him to be a very fair and reasonable man, and a good man. So I also appreciate that he would appreciate when I come to him asking for specific work for older persons in this country as the Minister of Labour. But I also want to make a plea to the private sector, because there are many people in the private sector, sir, who feel that older persons shouldn't work. And that if people get a certain age, sir, they send them home, even if the person is competent. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have to make space for the younger person, sir, but I'm saying to you that we will have more older persons and we will have younger persons. There's going to be space for everyone, sir. In relation to social security, the objective is to improve the overall awareness, knowledge, and capabilities of older persons in enhancing their social security and associated retirement planning outcomes. Sir, I want to start talking to Barbados about retirement planning. You know, I said the other day we have to plan for our retirement, and the comments on social media were scathing. How could people plan for retirement when they have nothing? I had a conversation one night when I was out, sir. Men were drinking, some friends and others, and they telling me they can't afford, while ordering more and more beer and whiskey, they can't afford to plan for retirement. I found the ironies to be startling. Nonetheless, I believe that we can find a way, sir. You know, if it were not for my barber, sir, second one, I have to. If it were not for my barber, for me to say Skrilla. Skrilla cuts my hair. But I was talking to Skrilla, and I was saying to Skrilla, you know, you got to start planning for your retirement. Skrilla told me, of course, I've started. I can get old. And then what Skrilla said to me, I said, well, people curse me on social media. You know, I said they got a plan for the retirement, and they cursed me. Skrilla said, well, tell them don't plan then. Tell them don't plan then. At the end of the day, sir, you know, he who feels it knows it. When you turn 60, sir, and there's no access to anything, sir, I had a constituent who had paid in, I brought it up in the estimates, 498 contributions, 2 contributions short. This would have been before I became the MP, when he first told me his story. 2 contributions short. He's no pastor. It is my belief that if he were able to access some benefit, his quality of life, because he started to lose his sight, his mobility, but with no money coming in, it becomes almost impossible to live, sir. And I want to talk to Barbados about planning for their retirement in as best as they can. I also feel that the state has a responsibility, of course, that is why through contributory and non-contributory pensions, perhaps at some point in the future, perhaps increasing them. But I also feel that that's a conversation that we have to be able to have. Increasing the monies that we make available at welfare, sir, so people can live, sir. I won't go through all on Social Security, but on health and health systems, sir. The objective is to minimize or remove the resource constraints and quality barriers that affect the overall standards and delivery of healthcare for older persons, sir. This is identified in the situation analysis. This is what they said was bothering them. And sir, we know that we have then to put in place systems to fix that. I often say, sir, when I used to lecture at the university, for those who did participatory research methods, unlike quantitative research methods or other components of qualitative research, the real test of whether something is true or not, the veracity of a research question or a hypothesis you may be testing, sir, is whether the participants feel themselves that this is an accurate description of their reality. It is not about percentages, it is not about numbers, it is simply about how does this statement about my life make me feel about my life? Is this accurate about my life? And older persons are saying, regardless of all of these data, that they do not feel they're treated well when they go to medical facilities, sir. We also have to improve the relationship, sir, and we have outlined strategies to be able to do this, sir. We're going to acquisition, utilization, and deployment of human resources, sir. And I know that the Ministry of Health is already working on bringing on more nurses. I know they're doing the necessary training. But, sir, I just make the point, sir, I just think the burden is just too great for QE. I mean, when you have an aging population at this rate, you could just anticipate, sir, and an unhealthy aged population is going to become extremely difficult, even with the best will in the world. That is why I think prevention is better than cure. That is why I think families have to be able to step up, sir. In relation to the physical and built environment, sir, we have to improve the stock of housing and other physical, public, private living spaces and arrangement for older persons. I hope that when we build out Sterling in the very near future, that we can ease some of that burden. The permanent secretary and the staff in the ministry, and Ms. Ford and the others, sir, I know they're working on trying to find spaces within the city or closer to town, so that you can have one in the east to begin with and another one closer to the city, to allow people to have some respite, sir, or daycare for the elderly. And our plans, I am told that we were supposed to be in a meeting today, but here we are in Parliament to help finalize the plans for Sterling, sir. In relation to the social environment, sir, we've listed strategies for these too. Development of a housing policy, which I know the Minister for Housing is working on, and which we will work on together. In relation to the social environment, Mr. Speaker, sir, to ensure that older persons have access to and live positively in safer and more age-friendly home and community environments, sir. You know, Mr. Speaker, I had a constituent, again, like most of us. She was older, lived alone, and started suffering some aspects of dementia. She had a very decent house. A wooden house, but I mean a decent house, you know. You could tell one of those persons who cared for where she lived, around the space was clean. But over time, as her mind began to suffer from dementia, sir, for facilities, the physical facilities were deteriorating almost at the same rate as her cognitive abilities. We asked around to see if we could find a family member to help come and help the lady in this house. We could find no one. We went to the neighbors, sir, but since she had dementia, she became very difficult. Nobody wanted to go by the woman's house. We could find nobody to help this old lady, sir. You know, you just can't walk into people's space. She passed. Mr. Speaker, sir, a woman that had no family suddenly had the most family in the world. All appearing from God knows where, sir, fighting over her property. But while she was living and while her living conditions were deteriorating, we could find no one to assist that older person. So these things are wrong, sir. So you have to tie that physical environment, sir, the built-up environment, housing, to elder abuse, neglect. We were told of a person, sir, whose granddaughter or niece visited her, sir, wheeled her in a corner, locked the wheelchair, left her in that corner, all day long, left to go to work or go wherever she would go, and left that old lady locked in the space, sir. So we said we would come back and talk to her when the lady was there. And when we got back, the old lady would not say a word. Petrified. Do you know what it is to live in perpetual fear in your own house? Mr. Speaker, sir. So it's not only about building the physical space. We have to make sure we put in place systems to protect older persons as we do this. That is why I think the legislation, sir, is going to be so important. You know, they say to me that you cannot legislate care, and that is true. That's why we got to do other things. But I surely can punish those who go out and abuse older persons, though. And this legislation must be strong enough, sir. I know people can complain. The penalties are too stiff. Jail terms are too rough. But, sir, these older persons built this country. And they should not be suffering the way they're made to suffer, sir, now in this country. That is why, sir, finally, the legislation, sir, that we are bringing, sir, is going to begin to address a number of these things, sir. I think that legislation is so comprehensive. It is so comprehensive, sir, that it would allow us, sir, and it has the weigh-in of the Law Reform Commission, sir. It had the weigh-in of CBL, it had the weigh-in of the ministry, the parliamentary, the CPC's office, sir. It would allow us, sir, to have something that makes sense. Makes sense. Sir, in relation to pandemics, disasters, and emergency situations, sir, we want to ensure a well-coordinated, fully resourced, and highly effective national community response. And we put in place a whole set of strategies, sir. They're all documented well in the policy, sir. So, sir, what then is left to do? Because we've identified what the issues are in the situation analysis. We've identified, sir, what the plans are in relation to the future as it speaks to the policy, sir. What do we do now with the implementation, sir? I have outlined, sir, in this chamber that we have an implementation plan. The document is 60 pages long. So this is not no whimsical fly-by-night, nothing. This is serious work that has gone into this. Sir, where we have gone through each item one by one and put in place timelines. And we monitor those timelines to make sure that we're able to do this, sir. One of the things that we felt was going to be important was that we create a national coordinating and implementation committee for the policy, sir. We've done that, sir. The Honourable Member for St. Thomas chairs that committee, sir, and they've already started doing the work, sir, to be able to make sure that we put in place the things that are necessary to make this policy a lived document. I have said, sir, that there is no way this administration can let this policy go and sit down just so. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me remind you, sir, the Honourable Member for St. Michael East, sir, as well, once when he was Minister of Social Transformation, we also did work on an elder policy. This was in about 2005 or 2006, I think. Before him, sir, I worked with Hamilton, the former member for St. Michael South East, sir, permit me to say Hamilton Lashley. When Hamilton Lashley brought the paper here, I remember sitting at Hammy's house, sir, and going through this policy, sir. This is serious work. And then when the honourable member, the former member for St. Michael South East brought that work here, sir, at the time, that would have been almost 20 years ago, saying then this is potentially what is going to happen. Allowing, sir, between 2008 and 18, sir, not much, truth be told, in relation to what we did for the elderly, sir. Sir, in phase 2, we will establish more specific subcommittees to monitor different components of the work, sir. You break it down into smaller, bite-sized pieces. They say the best way to eat an elephant is bit by bit. Break it down into smaller pieces. That's what we're doing, sir. We're then going to set our specific policy areas, sir, per year. This is what I want to achieve by the end of this year. This is what I want to achieve by the end of the month. The good thing about marking this way, sir, is that you can go back quickly and see whether you're on target or not. You know, you don't have a whole policy, which is what the problem, I think, with the last policy, is that you had created a policy, but then you didn't break it down into bite-sized chunks. So then you don't go back and say, you know, I want to do my policy. No, this component of the policy by this time, that component by that time, sir. That is what we're doing. We've broken it down, sir, into component parts, and then we're going to finalize it and put it into operationalization, sir. Sir, so to this end, we've set up the committee, sir, We've already started doing a lot of work on the National Literacy Program. We're working with the Ministry of Health, sir, on a number of programs, sir, because the two ministries are going to be tied at the hip. As I said in my beginning, there is no way that improving the lives of the elderly can be a work only for the Ministry of People Empowerment. It is a work for the Ministry of Housing, Agriculture, Sports, the minister responsible for crime reduction, education, transport, business. This is a work for everybody, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that is why we're going to set up these coordinating committees, sir. That is why we're going to be making sure that we report often, sir, to the country about the results that we are working on and hoping to have, sir. Sir, some other things that we're doing in the ministry, sir, I won't go through all of the list of things here, sir, but I suspect that I'll have another occasion as I wrap up, if I need to, when that time comes, to be able to address some of these things, sir, or when I bring back the legislation in a few months. Sir, I think that the work with the NGO sector, my work with BARP and the Seroptimists, and the work with the Homeless and Vagrant Society and other places, sir, is going to be the thing that makes a difference, sir, to allow us to have partners to drive most of the work, sir. And what the thing that I appreciate about the ministry's partners is that they report. We don't have a lot of difficulty chasing down people trying to get reports, sir. They report to make sure that if I give you $10 to do these 5 things, you report on the 5 things and the $10 and how you spent it, sir. It's not that we want to give away money, sir, as a free-for-all, sir, but obviously, sir, my strong undergirding principled position is that the government must facilitate. The government doesn't have to be the deliverer of goods and services in every instance. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, some specific measures that we've undertaken, sir. We began some training at the SJPI. We've already had some scholarships in auxiliary nursing. The National Assistance Board, I know, has brought on some additional nurses to help the elderly. They've brought on physiotherapists as well to be able to help the elderly. A lot of work is going on, sir, quietly. Too quietly, actually. And I think we need to say a little bit more about the work that is being done at the National Assistance Board. Sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Assistance Board has, in my mind, undergone a quiet revolution to the point where it is performing extremely well. And when you do we had done a survey, sir, we asked people what do they think. As you saw even in this survey, that the National Assistance Board is held in extremely high regard for the work that they are doing, sir. And I want to commend them as well, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I close, we have, sir, now in the ministry, we're in a position where the amalgamation of family services is extremely advanced. I am just finalizing a few things with the union, sir. We're going to bring here, certainly in the next few weeks, month or so, well, as soon as possible, sir, we're going to bring to this place the new legislation to guide family services, which we have in draft, to create that framework. So because it becomes very difficult to talk about, the elderly policy, sir, the elderly legislation, even the child protection policy, or legislation outside of the context of an amalgamation, where the amalgamation will be the overall body that guides that work. And that makes sense, sir, because the current thing that exists is that if you go to a household to check on an elderly person, you don't check on the children, you don't check on the persons with disabilities. We're having an overall intervention that speaks to the whole family. That is going to be very, very important, sir. And that amalgamation will surely be completed this year, provided that we get past these very small issues now with the union. Sir, we're at the point where we're identifying the positions, where we've identified the positions. We're proposing, sir, a specific pay scale for the staff, sir, with the recognition, sir, that no staff member will be disadvantaged. In fact, many of them will see some advantage after the amalgamation, sir. But that if we are able to do this amalgamation right, to coordinate, because throughout the policies work and in the situation analysis, one of the biggest concerns was that there was not enough coordination. The amalgamation begins to address some of those coordination issues, sir. So I also believe that I have to thank the workers at the National Assistance Board, sir, for the work that they are doing in relation to helping the elderly population in Barbados, sir. You know, when we brought on the workers, it was never meant to be a full-time thing. We didn't bring on the elder care workers with a view to keeping them on. So that bill is $9 million a year. But it became obvious, sir, that the benefits that having them on, sir, the benefits that having them on board, sir, were too significant to let them go. So not only did we bring on 400 and something workers in COVID, we kept them. Then, sir, we put in place everything necessary to make sure that having kept them, that they were given dignified work, vacation, sick days, NAS, sir. Giving them a standard of living, sir, that previously, sir, they did not have for themselves, sir. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank the elder care workers, but I also want to thank the home helpers, sir. You know, many people see these home helpers going around from house to house, sir. They don't understand the abuse that they sometimes get from family members, not the persons who are older with dementia, from family members sometimes who are very disrespectful and say the most disparaging things, sir, and speak to them with all kind of vitriol. And it's not right, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to thank them, sir, for the grace that they exhibit, sir, the dignity with which they conduct themselves, sir, on a day-to-day basis, sir. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, we currently have on home care 144 workers seeing 1,343 clients. 144 home care workers seeing 1,343 clients. We have 420 elder care workers dealing with 882 beneficiaries, sir. It is obvious that these are not even beginning to scratch the surface of need. Not even beginning to scratch it, sir. Should we hire an additional 20,000 workers? Or do we have to have a conversation with Barbados about what it is going to take, sir, to get us past this point? I had a friend, sir, when I was turning 40, he said to me yesterday, I was 40. Tomorrow you will be 60. And when I was turning 40, it seemed a joke. But all of a sudden, I feel like 60 is fast approaching too. And I know, sir, that those of us who might be 50 or even 20 and think we have all this time in the world to do as we like, sir, you don't. Therefore, I know that we have to put in place systems all now for ourselves and for our elderly population, Mr. Speaker, sir. I asked the head of the National Assistance Board, so what concerns her the most? She told me, sir, the director of the National Assistance Board told me that family dynamics and the change in approach to care bothers her, sir. Family dynamics. This is not me now, this is the director of the National Assistance Board, sir. She said the fact that family members are the main perpetrators of abuse bothers her. The quantity, intensity, and composition of care is changing given the health challenges of beneficiaries as they age and demand for care versus the supply of workers, sir. Her words. Which in a way, sir, is evidence in this policy, Mr. Speaker, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have trespassed, I think, on your kindness, sir. But I want to thank you, sir. I want to thank this Parliament for allowing me, in some detail, to go through the situation analysis and as well as the overall policy, sir. And also for giving me the latitude, sir, to discuss what is to come and our approach to implementation, sir, and what drives this ministry. I want to end, as I began, sir, by thanking all of our partners because we would not be here without the support of the many people, sir, who have supported us, some, sir, in nice words and some in not so nice words, but support nonetheless. Because this is not about me, it is not about anybody in this room, sir. This is about creating a better life for all of our people, specifically, sir, as it relates to the elderly, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, with those very few words, very, very few words, Mr. Speaker, sir, that summarizes, in essence, what this resolution is about, sir. I want to thank you, sir, for allowing me to speak on this resolution, sir, and I want to move, sir, that this resolution be now passed.
Honourable member for Christ yourself.
I'm obliged to you, Your Honor, and good morning to all colleagues. Your Honor, I would want to begin in an even shorter presentation than that of the Honourable Member for St. Michael South, and to begin by asking your permission to express condolences and to pay tribute to the mother of a former member of this staff of Parliament. The mother of Greg Small died a few hours ago. Her name is Elrita Clark, and it would be of some interest to the Honourable Member for St. James Central to hear that she is of Fix Village, St. James, and even of greater contribution to his constituency and to the country of Barbados is the fact that she lived for 98 years, and that's a long time. She has been the mother of 7 children. One may be known to Barbadians, Peter Clark, who died many years ago, and he was the falsetto voice in Joseph Niles and the Consolers. Her son Sam lives in New York, and as I said, her daughter Greg Small recently left this Parliament on retirement. So that she belongs to that generation of Barbadians. I know it sounds like a cliche, but it really is not. I say this in the sense that it does have great meaning, that they are the ones who made this country, who shaped this country into what it has been and what we hope it can remain. So I want to express, with the time that you give me, Your Honor, condolences to all of her children alive, and merely to do what we normally do on an occasion like this when someone at the age of 98 has left us. We go to 2 Timothy 4:7. I fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. And what better tribute to a 98-year-old than is 2 Timothy 4:7, that she fought the good fight. She finished her course and she kept the faith. So my condolences to the Clark family of Fix Village, and to and Prospect, thank you, and to the Honourable Member for St. James Central, who I know will honour the occasion when it shall come. And if he does not hear, I will certainly tell him. I would have arrived here late because I was spending a little time with the other end of humanity, and I know the presentation this morning has been on the aging, the matter of the aging. Of course, before one becomes the elderly, one is a child, and so I spent some time visiting a day camp that I host every year at my constituency office and its facilities. That is not only an office, that is a community activity center, as I call it. And at the other end of the spectrum of humanity are these little children who were present there. And I went and I just had a talk with them as to their responsibilities and our responsibilities towards them as children. The question of citizenship, they must have a sense of citizenship which involves a sense of belonging. And there's a Caribbean country, the constitution of which describes the citizens or those who are born there as belongers. And I'm always very curious about that nomenclature. You belong, which tells you, on the other hand, that sometimes that you don't belong. So we teach our children this concept of citizenship, which involves having a sense of belonging to the country in which you live. You tell them about a sense of responsibility. And of course, most importantly these days, you tell them about a sense of morality. And so I think that is how we who occupy the Middle Ages, because I've listened to the presentation very carefully, and one of the things I caught from the honourable member who spoke is that, I don't know if these were his precise words, but past 20, you're well headed towards 40, and past 40, you're well headed towards 60, and after 60, you're well headed to the golden years. So that in these early years, we teach our children that sense of belonging, that sense of responsibility, and as I told them this morning, that sense of morality. And it's a very simple message. And children will listen to you when you speak to them in simple terms. And I know speaking to children is very difficult. You have to locate a particular language that they will understand. And so you ask them about morality, whether they are aware that it is basically having an appreciation for right and wrong. And if you want a happy life, you try to do right. Of course, in the adult years, there's no guarantee that doing right guarantees you happiness, but that's another matter. So that if I am to give personal testimony, and I listen to a lot of the personal testimony of the honourable member for St. Michael South, my personal testimony is that I've had an encounter this morning with the two extremes of vulnerability, the very aged in terms of the passing of a 98-year-old, and the pleasanter experience of an encounter with children, those precious human beings that we bring into this world, and towards whom we must always have that sense of responsibility. It is not for me today to respond or comment on the honourable member's presentation. It was highly technocratic, and as I always say in here, I mean, you don't fight, you don't contest technocratic presentations. You take them for what they are. And he did pay tribute to several of the members of his staff. And when people occupy office and they do research and they put that research together and it comes to this parliament in the hands of an eloquent minister, what quarrel is there? There's no quarrel. And I want to express appreciation for the presentation. I listened to a lot of it, even in my car on the way here, and I listened to a lot of it here. And I appreciate what the honourable member has said here this morning based on the research of his abundant staff that is here present. And we express also appreciation to them. I caught a reference to BART and the presidency of Mrs. Marilyn Rice Boeing. I think I see her, yes, here, and I join in expressing commendation. I think I see Mr. Griffith. At my age, mine eyes shall not perceive the others with similar accuracy. But I join Minister, member for St. Michael South, in expressing appreciation to all these who have toiled in the vineyard to ensure that adult and elderly life is comfortable. I suppose they may accept my application to BART at some point. My applications are not always easily acceptable, but I hope BART, I hope BART will accommodate me with less trauma. So that, congratulations to all concerned. I hope the holiday is upon us after this session. And if it is upon us, Your Honor, I want to express to you the pleasures of my appearances here over the last few months. Here in this place. You have not visited me with any trauma nor difficulty. Although this is...
I'm not on the other side, honourable member.
Indeed. And I want to thank you for the way that you have accommodated me in this new role. And so if this is the recess, if we are on the cusp of recess, I wish you the best of holidays. I don't use the word summer holiday. I've never had a summer in Barbados. I've never experienced summer in Barbados. I've experienced the rainy season and the dry season. So I wish you a happy rainy season and hope that the rains will continue to shower us with God's grace and all his blessings. And to all of my colleagues on the other side, especially the Honourable Member for St. Thomas. We have now become each other's favorite in here. It was unplanned, but it is something that I enjoy. I see that she has obeyed the edict to wear her national colors today, and I wouldn't want to commend her for obeying the edict to wear her national colors, because if I do that, I might have to expose that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West has disobeyed the edict, and he and I have Let me stop there, sir. I wish you a happy rainy season. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honourable Member St. James Central.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want also to offer a very brief contribution to this very important matter. I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Honourable Member who piloted this bill did so in a very succinct way and made a number of important and telling points. Of course, followed by my friend for Christchurch South. And I am indebted to him for drawing to the attention of the House the very recent passing of the mother of a lady who would have served this place long and well. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, going back to the substance of the bill, I think that healthy and active aging is at the core of what we are struggling to achieve here in Barbados. And the Honourable Member who piloted the bill did not use these words, but he cautioned against, effectively, a piecemeal approach to the question of aging in Barbados. And I think that the country has now, without, and this is the usefulness in the Honourable Member for Christchurch South's contribution, without any fear of political rancor and division, artificial political division. Because all of we can get old, let us be frank about it. If we're blessed to live long and fruitful and productive lives, even if you don't, you can still get old. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, sir, old them or old be, apart from those who are at the world stinking in front of it, is still an old person. And that's what happens. You will be told that on the streets, because the streets speak. And sometimes we have to listen to the streets when they speak. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is necessary then to have what could only be called a multidisciplinary approach. There are cross-cutting themes, and the Honourable Member who piloted this bill spoke sensibly and adequately to it. We have, as a country, to recognize that you don't treat to healthy and active aging only when you get to a point where you are considered to be aged. If you are going to have a society where the aged are healthy, it means that the Ministry of Health and all that its work involves must be plugged in from an early stage when that individual is nascent, newborn, and growing. Same thing with sports. It is important, Mr. Speaker, sir, to have an active community. It is important to have a community that is participating actively in sporting activities and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. You may not get to the very distinguished level that Sadia Williams has gotten to, and one wishes her the very best for what, hopefully, in the next hour and a half to 2 hours will be a sensational contribution, Mr. Speaker, sir. But the reality is that she must serve as an example to all of us about what we can not only achieve nationally, but individually, what we should be trying to do to the best of our abilities in order to keep ourselves healthy. It may mean, consequentially, that the Honourable Member who sits to my right, and who has made his living in the medical profession or part thereof, may be a little less well off, because if you're taking good care of yourself, you don't have to pay the doctor and the dentist as much or as often, hopefully. But the truth is, sir, that that is what it has to be about. And it goes on and on. It is true of education. The Honourable Member made the point, it's true of virtually every ministry. What I did not want him to lose track of, sir, is that it is equally true of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we sometimes take for granted the need for this country to relate in a serious and a sensible manner with some of the things that are happening internationally, and to make sure not only that we build relationships with the global community, and in this context, I'm thinking of global NGOs, the non-governmental organizations of global reach that obviously would lend assistance to Barbados, but that we are with countries. Our foreign policy has been, sir, largely about building relationships with countries and non-governmental organizations. As far back as the memory of man doth run in this country, that's what we did. But we have to now seriously start to build relationships with parts of the international community that are there, available to assist Barbados in partnership, but we have taken it for granted. For example, the international academic community, where if we are able to make those relationships, we benefit from research, we benefit from better understandings of some of the state-of-the-art technologies and so on, but also more modern thinking. And research-based analysis, therefore, sir, helps with policy intervention. And it should therefore lend to a more rich or enriched and more mature menu of options for any minister who has to treat to the question of aging. It also is important, sir, for us to be able to lend a voice on matters which are critical to the development and well-being of the aged, but equally are critical to the development and the well-being of the country. Now, if we look across the water towards our friends in North America, for example, and I'm mindful of the fact that there is an electoral exercise taking place over there, and I don't want to get involved in anybody's internal domestic affairs. But the issue, or one of the issues, which are rich in the United States today, is this question of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is very relevant to the well-being of the elderly in Barbados. And we can't have an elderly community in which we don't accept, or a country in which our elderly are not part of the conversation when we're speaking about diversity. We are talking about embracing differences of everyone. It's a very simple word. And everyone must include, sir, irrespective of race, irrespective of one's age, irrespective of one's physical abilities, irrespective of one's religion, irrespective of one's gender. And though there are those who will curse me for saying it, sexual orientation as well. As well. Because you don't get to pick and choose on this question of diversity. It ain't good to have a clear conscience and a clear scope of saying you're embracing people irrespective of race, but then it suits you to pick and choose on other things. It's a conversation that Barbados, as a mature country, must have. And it is happening across the water. And we fool ourselves if we do not recognize as well it is happening on the continent of Europe. We fool ourselves as well if we do not recognize it is happening across Latin America. And the day will come when we are going to have to confront this manfully as adults and have the maturity of conversation. Now, if we're going to have a conversation about aging, then, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have to recognize that in the context of diversity and equity, that is simply treating people fairly. You're talking diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's the language used in the United States. But what really are they saying? Are they not saying that the elderly should be given an opportunity, if you are sufficiently able-bodied, sufficiently strong of mind, and have the inclination, because everybody may not have it, that if you wanted to be in the workplace at age 70, providing a consultancy, or if you are at 75, Mr. Speaker, sir, decide that self-employment is your thing, even though you're entitled to put up your foot and relax as a pensioner, but that at 75, you really feel that you should be doing something else because you feel it is productive and helpful to the country, that you should be accepted as part of a workforce, even if you are saying it is self-employment. But that is not a conversation we're having in Barbados, and I submit, sir, it is not something that we are encouraging in Barbados to be part of the conversation. Yet, surprise of all surprises, we will pack up a valise and head to Grantley Adams International Airport, as my friend signals his intention to do for his summer vacation. He winters in Barbados, but his summer is overseas, he just said. And while he is when he arrives in Boston, Massachusetts, he will go to Walmart, sir, and he will see an elderly lady, probably 75, 80 years old, working a checkout counter at Walmart. And it does not dawn on my friend, the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, to say, but this is a good thing. That this lady is involved, that she is treated as being included in the workforce, even though she is an old age pensioner in the United States, still finding something productive for her to do rather than being home, waiting on home help. If she's able-bodied, minded physically to be able to do it, and inclined. And that should be something as an exemplar that is imported into Barbados. I do not hold that against my friend, the Honourable Member, because it is true of several others of us who see it and not realize, sir, that we can bring some value from these experiences, apart from going into Walmart and get a lot of cheap goods to bring back here. I'm quarreling with you. Well, I'm glad that you do it. I'm happy for you. I prefer to keep the vendors in Bridgetown in pocket. But if that is your preference, that is your preference. Mr. Speaker, sir.
I remember you seem to know a very pattern of your friend from Christchurch.
Well, we spent a lot of time together, sir. We spent a lot of time together. I know he's a man who believes in Target and Walmart and those places. Sir. You will forgive me, sir, if I tell you that, I know Swan Street and them places, but that's a different thing. I'm happy to give him directions to find his way around Bridgetown, sir, if he has to travel on foot. But the truth of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that I say that in a lighthearted way, but it is a reality that culturally we have to find a way of connecting and making sure we connect our older people into the mainstream of our society and find ways to keep them there. Because in my own constituency, some of the most enriched forms of interaction that I have witnessed, sir, is when some of the senior citizens, some of the people who have been, for example, I'll give you one example, my constituency is replete with cricketers. I do not know that there's any part of Barbados that has produced as many representatives of the Barbados and or West Indies team as does that general area of St. James. And Mr. Speaker, sir, to see them interacting with youngsters is one of the happiest things that you can see. The sharing of experiences, the sharing of ideas, the sharing of values, the way forward. And it enriches community. It is important, I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, for us to find ways of getting our young people, to be more actively involved in a relationship with the more elderly. And the elderly, sir, must be encouraged, or discouraged rather, from being home drawn up, but to be out there and involved more widely in our community. I come to the last part of what I want to say, sir, which is the question of inclusion. Because, I listened to the international debate, and this diversity, equity, and inclusivity thing, sir, is, as I said, it is going around the world like a wildfire. We're going to have to face it, and we got to talk about it. What do we mean by inclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir? We have to respect the voice of people. We have to respect differences in culture and differences in ideas and perspective. But above and beyond respecting them, sir, we have to bring them as many voices and as many perspectives to the centerpiece of our national existence and our national conversations. Mr. Speaker, I listened to the debate that we last had in this House. I have not asked your permission, sir, to reflect on that debate, and I'm not going to. But that debate, sir, was one that touched on the question of bail, as you will recall, and therefore it was a law and order debate. There is a clash of values. Let us not fool ourselves. There's a clash of values in Barbados. And part of the solution, sir, must be that more mature part of this country which, as the honourable member who piloted this bill quite rightly said, built Barbados. That their voice, their perspective, their values, sir, must be part of the conversation and part of the solution, I want to respectfully submit. The lady to whom the honourable member referred, the mother of that lady who has served this parliament, sir, I knew her, Greg's mother, yes, I knew her well. There was never a time that you did not walk through the district and find her sitting by the doorstep, sir, willing to share thoughts, ideas, perspectives to whosoever will and wanted to spend a little bit of time. The benefiting, sir, of guidance from that more mature part of our community is vitally important, Mr. Speaker. And it is something that we have to find a way to create the opportunity for that type of interaction to take place. Now, Mr. Speaker, it helps to empower our young people. It helps to give them a sense of perspective. You know, I said just now to the honourable member that the streets talk. And the streets have been talking for a long time. Barbados very often chooses not to listen when the street talk. In the 80s, or was it the 70s, Bob Marley would have sang a song, "Woman, hold your head and cry. Your son has been shot down in the street and died. I lent her comfort as a passerby." A little bit later, sir, a little bit later, though he himself was also shot down in the street and died. I'm trying to remember the name. His name is Biggie Smalls. Stage name, Biggie Smalls. Chris Wallace, correct. Coming out of New York City, the street talking, but we choose not to listen. We choose not to listen. And he amplified the message from Bob Marley. Some said it was too grim. Some said that you shouldn't say them things. But he told a story of young people stealing from the mother purse. Told a story of running guns. Told a story of drugs. Told a story, Mr. Speaker, sir, of mothers who had come to a stage where they were so frustrated and fed up with the children that they had given birth to boy children that, as he puts it in his song, this is in the member for St. James Central, as he puts it in his song, and the song named the same thing that Bob Marley's song named, that those children should have been an abortion. The streets talking. And when you get that level of gravity, Mr. Speaker, it is important to be able to listen to what is being communicated. That there is a loss of value socially. And the gulf that we see between the values that your grandmother and grandfather had, and my grandmother and grandfather, all of us in here, grandparents had, sir, and that which we witness in Barbados today, that gulf of value did not begin this morning or yesterday morning or last year or 2 years ago, sir. This has been a product of the passage of time and a change of perspective born out of experiences, many of which are thrust upon these societies by the all-powerful media coming out of the United States of America, and against which we are not entirely powerless, but against which we must be committed to turn a face like flint and to confront with an effort to preserve that which we know is good, noble, and true and desirable. But what we have chosen to do instead is to encourage more of that and less of that which we know is good, noble, true, and desirable. And our television stations become satellites, repeater stations of the filth that comes from North American quarters. Mr. Speaker, sir, our radio stations become satellites of the nonsense that they produce. Mr. Speaker, sir, our culture becomes warped by the impact of that. And when the honourable member who piloted this bill says that there has to be a holistic approach to aging, sir, he is 100% right, because in order for us to have an elderly society 50 years from now, when those young men who are 20 today become 70 and have to pass on something to their grandchildren, Mr. Speaker, the investment in the Barbados that we will want to exist then has to begin from now. And it must be an investment that takes into account the health considerations, the education considerations, the cultural considerations, Mr. Speaker, and you go on and on and on and on. Now, I did not come here to give a lecture on that, but I do believe that we cannot have a conversation of this nature without understanding and respecting the diversity of our society. And the debate that is taking place globally on this matter, sir, of diversity, equity, and inclusion is a critical one. It is being resisted by conservatives all around Europe, North America, and Latin America, and in Africa. Resisted, Mr. Speaker, because it is about allowing those things that are extremely harmful to our young people, those things that will maintain prejudice in our societies, those things that will continue to make sure that there are barriers raised against equality of opportunity for people and for countries. It don't end with people, and for the countries they come from. It ain't an accident that it happens and it is supported by people who will look at Barbados or look at Haiti and say that it is a SHIT whole country. It ain't an accident that it would happen. It is a consistency. And it is important, Mr. Speaker, that the conversation be had. Because without the conversation, we can be lulled into a false sense of security and complacency, that all is well, and we ain't see the ripple hit our shores yet. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it isn't a ripple. It is really a wave that is coming our way. And we got to stand for something, or we fall for anything. And in this particular context, sir, I use this debate as an opportunity, and I will seek out many more to draw to the attention of this country the importance of our voice internationally and the relationships we build internationally, especially when we are talking, sir, about the question of inclusion, about the question of acceptance of those things and those values, those perspectives and those ideals that we hold dear. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the treatment of countries, especially micro-states like ours, the treatment of small island developing states, and the treatment of the people who come from those states with equality and with a measure of dignity and decency. And if you get it right at the human level within our boundaries, sir, it is easy for us to do it transnationally and across the world. With those few words, Mr. Speaker, sir, I lend my support to this bill, and I compliment yet again the honourable member who piloted it. I am obliged to you.
Honourable member for St. John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too want to lend my support to this bill. Ever so often, when I come to this place, there are initiatives that will benefit the people of St. John. And I want to say that only last week, I was in the home of a young lady, Miss Eugene Miller, who turned 100 years old. And a lot of the things that the honourable member for St. Michael's South mentioned was evident. And he too, probably without being aware, shared some of my thoughts in relation to how we treat to our old people. Because he mentioned my mother, but he also said, Mommy. And in a lot of households, that particular word is missing. And I have 3 people in the constituency of St. John who are, she was 100 years old. I have another lady who is about 106, and a gentleman who is 104 years old. And in every single case, when I visited the household, it was not so much a case that these elderly folks were living a good life and that they were glowing, but the family that was within the household clearly was supporting them 110%, and hence the glow that I saw coming from those individuals within the constituency. And I believe that these 8 pillars that were outlined by the honorable member, like I said, would benefit those folks in St. John who are now in that evening process of their life. Mr. Speaker, I am of the firm belief that some people in Barbados were not born. I would like to say that they got here by AI, but it would be an oxymoron to say intelligence and to compare that with some of the people, because I can't understand or believe how individuals can treat their parents, and in most cases, their mothers, the way how I have heard stories about people being treated on island. The pension check is used as a personal ATM for a lot of children, and I've heard stories where persons indicated, I want to put my mother in a home, but when they got the information that the pension will be suspended, there was a change as far as that is concerned. And it is unfortunate because, like I said, these are the people who build our country, and for children to then function in the way that they're functioning is, I don't know. The honorable member would have mentioned the need for the Ministry of Sports to be involved in the process in terms of active aging, and I want to share with him that last year, my ministry put on a swim program where in excess of 500 seniors participated in that program at Bronx Beach. And we're looking to see how best we can have that program come again in October this year. So we are actively involved in that. At community level, Mr. Speaker, we have started the process of putting down community gyms because we're talking about active aging. And those gyms are being utilized not only by the young, but they're being utilized by the seniors within the constituency all across this country. If you go to Gore Hill on any evening, you will see that the elderly folks utilizing those facilities. And the wish of the ministry is to ensure that all across this country, those community gyms are put in place. The honorable member for St. James Central would have mentioned the intergenerational solidarity, and it is something, Mr. Speaker, that I believe that we should look at. I have a daughter who ever so often is constantly asking about things of the past. And I think we have a lot of old persons who are living within the constituencies that, for example, after 11 plus exam, should be going into the school system to interact with our youngsters, to show them what happened in the past. I spoke to a couple of young girls recently, and I asked them when is the last time that they played hopscotch, and they wanted to know what I was talking about. They don't have the foggiest idea about that particular game. And I think that we should be able to do this in terms of having that bridge where our older folks can interact with the youngsters and talk to them, and the honorable member spoke about the streets. And I'm seeing that more and more where the streets are mentoring a lot of our young people. And the end result, Mr. Speaker, you know only too well where that is ending. So I fully support this. The housing, in terms of the built environment, Minister, I want to say to you that, again, I believe that we should be able to target across the island those persons. I have been able to remove in excess of 30 toilets within the constituency of St. John, primarily old folks who are living within the constituency. And I believe that in their golden years, there should be a level of decency attached, that we should not have our young people doing that. So I want to thank the government. I want to thank you for speaking to the built environment, because I know that this particular program will impact them as well. Mr. Speaker, the health care. I have some issues within my constituency in relation to persons seeking health care. I believe that the service can be made even a little better in terms of the time that they have to wait. But this is something, honorable member, that I think you should look at. My namesake, who's sitting here inside of the chamber, permission to call his name, Mr. George Griffith, is doing some fantastic work with that companionship program. It is impacting in my constituency in a significant way. And Honourable Member, I'm asking for an expansion of the program because every single week there are calls coming to the branch office, there are calls coming to my phone asking for persons to be involved in the process, to treat to what is happening in terms of the elderly within the constituency. I think it is a fantastic program, and I want to thank you, sir, for the work that you're doing in relation to this. You know that I've been making your phone miserable on several occasions as it relates to this particular program. And all of my persons are speaking very highly of the work that you're doing when they interact with you, so I want to say thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, you know, when we speak about the old population or the elderly population, and I believe in a couple of years I may be graduating into that particular category as well. But I think that this particular bill that we're debating here today is one that will move all of our people in that age range forward. And I would hope, Minister, the Honourable Member, that you can, your ministry and mine can work a lot closer together, because I see the nexus where our young people need to be involved in the process, and we need to do some things that can ensure that going forward we have the success that you're looking for. I realize, as you would have mentioned, it is an absolute detail. Last night I was going through the document. It's an absolute detailed document. And if you hit all of the targets that you have indicated that you're looking to hit, I suspect that a lot of persons on this island will be pleased. Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I am obliged.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask that we now break for lunch. I recognize that we are all interested in watching a race. I understand race time is 2 o'clock, so we'll break for a lunch till 2:30 today.
The question is that this Honourable Chairman be suspended until 2:30 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chairman stands suspended until 2:30 p.m.